Go. Hi, everybody. It's Vaughn and Candace here. Hey, everybody. So, we are here to share. We've been married for about 23 years and very happily married. And we want to help couples. And we're just so excited to be asked, to be a part of this. What couples argue about is the topic. And we just have a few questions that we're going to go through. And I would like to ask you one question, and I want to know what you think about it.
Okay.
What's your take on it? Okay.
Okay.
So, first question is, can you still be friends with the opposite sex? Now, some say yes because many friendships are platonic, and some say no because it's a setup for infidelity or it's disrespectful to your spouse. So, what are the boundaries? What's your take?
Well, I believe that you can be friends with opposite sex if only that person is a friend with your spouse. There shouldn't be no separate or private relationship. For example, Candace and I, we have the same email, for example. So she has her email, I have my email, but they're both actually directed into one email address. So we see all the emails that come into our accounts. Um,
Very transparent.
very transparent, exactly. She has the passwords to my cell phone. I got the passwords to her cell phone. We actually even share the same bank account. So there's nothing private between us. We share everything. So it's the same thing with relationships. All relationships should be transparent, and only if that person is a friend with your spouse, then you should maintain that friendship. If they, and for any reason, don't like your spouse or disrespect your spouse, you should cut that relationship off immediately, because you and your spouse are one. So if they
Yes.
offend your spouse, they offend you. That's my take on it.
I think that's a good take.
Okay, great. So my question is number two: should you tone down your sexy? Some say if I work for it, I bought it. I earned the right to show off all my sexy. Others may say when you become a wife or a husband, you should tone it down or keep things in a realm that is not disrespectful to your spouse. In other words, do you attract attention that may cause a problem in your marriage? Y'all tell me, what do you think? What's your take on it?
Oh, great. Okay, so my take on that particular question, should we tone down our sexy if you worked for it? Well, it depends on what's the occasion, where are you, when you attracted your spouse, if they felt that, and they should have felt that you were, appealing, whether it's sexy or whatever you want to call it. I believe that you should continue to be appealing. You should definitely be aware of, especially in if you're a person that believes in modesty, as most Christian people should, then you should definitely consider that. But whatever it was that attracted your spouse, you want to continue to do that. I believe that you want to continue to look good. You should want your spouse to look good, and toning it down, I don't know who that would help, unless your spouse is very insecure at some point. Why that shouldn't be. I like to look good for my husband. Sometimes if we take a vacation, you know, I like to just, I might go and buy a new bathing suit, and I want him to like it. I want him to think it looks good on me. So I don't think you should tone it down, but I don't think that you should be overly exposed as well. So,
Okay, great, great, definitely.
and so I have another question for
Mhm.
you. Okay, so how much sex should be expected in a relationship? Some people say once you get married, sex should be on the table at any time, while others say it's unreasonable to expect sex numerous times during the week because of work, kids, responsibilities, and just being tired. I mean, how come frequency of sex seems to be such a big issue? What is your take?
Well, I think that in a marriage relationship, it's whatever the married couple feel comfortable with. Whatever you feel comfortable with, that is exactly what should happen. And, being a Christian myself, I can tell you from a biblical standpoint, the scripture talks about how my body belongs to my wife, and my wife's body belongs to her, belongs to me. So we are partners in this relationship. We are co partners, and we each have needs at different times sometimes. but we should never hold back just because you feel like maybe I'm just too busy, or maybe I'm just too tired. Why? Because you don't want to leave any room for the enemy, first of all, again, talking from a Christian standpoint, and also because we're supposed to be there for each other, to help each other. A lot of times sex actually helps to ease stress and to ease the
Yes.
burden that you feel from a work day. It helps to relax you, put you to sleep. So I think that we're both committed to each other, and whatever the relationship asks for, we just feel free. There should really
Yeah.
should be no boundaries.
Yeah, I agree. I really believe that, when it comes to sex, sometimes it's a great stress reliever, and sometimes you don't know you really need that until, you engage and you say, that's exactly what I needed. And sometimes you just need to keep that intimacy, because arguments can get in there and they could stop the intimacy. So you got to always be coming together and always becoming one in that way, so that it can take away some of the arguments. And sometimes it's just the exact right medicine that you need to forget all the arguments, and so that it's like, what were we arguing about in the first place for? So it's a way that I believe that the Lord has ordained and put in place, so that you won't be just staying in that mode of arguing back and forth. And when you don't come together that way, things pile up, and then you forget that love that you had. You can grow out of love. And so that's one of the mechanisms that the Lord put in place for us to come back
Come back
together and
together.
remember what's
Yes.
important.
Okay, great. Got another question for you. The marriage covenant is one of the greatest gifts to mankind, with which knowledge, I believe, with this knowledge, I believe we should do whatever it takes to honor it and to protect it. In good judgment, does conversation with exes pose a threat to the marriage covenant? What do you take? What's your take on it?
Well, my take on that is that it should not pose a threat to the marriage covenant with exes, whether it's ex spouses or ex girlfriends and boyfriends. It should not, but it should be done with transparency. There shouldn't be any. Sometimes you have no choice. If it's an ex and there's children involved, there's going to be conversations that has to happen. If this is an ex and there's no children involved, then that can get a little touchy, because that person needs to be able to move on. Maybe it's a family friend or something that's friends of the whole family. But I believe that every wife needs to know that they are number one, and there shouldn't be any type of other person, and every husband as well. I mean, if the shoe's on the other foot, I guess every husband wouldn't want to know that their wife is still very good chummy friends with an ex boyfriend, and the same thing for the wife. So you got to be real about that, realistic about it, and you have to include your spouse, as well as maybe be willing to give up that relationship, because um, at the end of the day, you have to be grow one with that spouse. And that may mean it's not about you and the other relationships you had before the marriage. It's more about you and the relationship that you are growing with your spouse. Now, if there if there are children involved, or it's an ex-spouse where you were married and there's children involved, there's going to have to be conversations, but it has to be very totally transparent. That's my take
Great
on it.
answer. That's perfect.
Okay. So we got one more.
Okay.
And so I wanted to know what your take is on this one. So there are times in any marriage where you will encounter challenges, of course. The Bible teaches that there is a safety in a multitude of counsel. So how much of your marital issues should you share with friends and family? And is this really a big problem? And where do you stand on this? What is your take?
I agree that this can be a big problem. But I truly believe that whatever happens between two individuals in a marriage should actually stay within the marriage, unless you have permission from the other person to share this with a friend or family member. This should be done by permission only, because a lot of things that happen in a marriage is just so sensitive, and a lot of times outside influences can cause you to make decisions that can threaten your marriage, that threaten your relationship. A lot of times people are very selfish in their relationship. Let's say you have a brother or a sister who's looking out for your interests only, rather than your spouse's, and they are encouraging you to make a decision because of their selfish stand, or let's say it's your mom or your daddy, of course they're definitely going to look out for you first. So, I would rather go to a neutral person like a counselor, professional, whether it's a psychiatrist or someone like that who can, or maybe a pastor who is kind of neutral when it comes to you making decisions and the issues that happen in your marriage, because they're going to give you a more honest answer than a family member. You may have a dad or a mom who might give you a good answer, but a lot of times they will take your side because they love their children. So yeah, unless you can get someone who's neutral and you definitely have your spouse's permission to reveal what's happening in the marriage, it should stay within the marriage.
I agree, and I also want to add to that. Sometimes when you get family involved, you put them in a sticky situation. So as soon as they take sides, then they can become, the enemy.
Right.
Because the husband and wife are one, and they're going to have each other's back. And so if that person comes out against one of the other ones, once they get back together, then it's awkward for everyone, because that person could be, you're putting them in a sticky situation. So you really shouldn't get family involved. You should just let them stay neutral. So all the family meetings, the picnics, and all of the family reunions will stay, at a peaceful level, rather than getting them involved and having them choose sides, then making everybody uncomfortable. It's just not worth it.
Awesome.
All right. Okay.
All right, guys, that's our take on it, and hopefully you guys can learn something that will help you in your relationship as well. Have a blessed night.
God bless.